The colony on Eos 7 was supposed to be humanity's shining achievement, a testament to its bold steps into the galaxy. Instead, it was a burning ruin. Smoke choked the air as Captain Nathan Cole stood atop a crumbled wall, scanning the carnage below. The Kronthys had struck at dawn, their sleek, silver ships slicing through the sky like predatory birds. The invaders left no room for negotiation, their energy weapons cutting through defenses like paper. Cole's jaw tightened as he spotted survivors dragging injured comrades into the bunker below. His voice cut through the chaos, sharp and unyielding. "Torres, I need status on the north perimeter now." Sergeant David Torres emerged from a nearby trench, his face smeared with ash and sweat. "Gone, sir. They overran it an hour ago. We've got maybe 30 able bodies left, and half of those are barely standing." His tone was steady, but the grim reality weighed on every word. Behind them, the sound of hurried footsteps signaled the arrival of Dr. Malcolm Hargrove. The scientist was clutching a datapad, his pristine lab coat now torn and stained. "Captain, if you're planning to hold them off with brute force, you're wasting your time. Their tech is centuries ahead of ours. We need another approach." Cole turned to face him, his steel-blue eyes narrowing. "And what do you suggest, Doctor? Diplomacy? Because they didn't seem interested when they started vaporizing civilians." Hargrove bristled but didn't back down. "I suggest we stop thinking like soldiers and start thinking like survivors. This planet isn't just dirt under our boots. It's alive, and we can use that." Before Cole could reply, a sharp cry echoed from the bunker entrance. Private Noah Green, barely out of his teens and sporting a makeshift bandage around his forehead, stumbled toward them. "Captain, they're regrouping on the ridge. If they push now, we're done." Cole glanced at Torres. "Get the remaining charges set. If they breach the inner perimeter, we make them pay for every step." As Torres barked orders to the few remaining soldiers, Hargrove stepped closer to Cole. "This isn't sustainable. If we keep reacting, we'll be wiped out. I've been studying the local ecosystem. There's a plant here, a kind of spore burst, that secretes an acid strong enough to melt through metal. We could use it. You want me to fight advanced aliens with flowers?" Cole's voice was flat, his patience wearing thin. "They underestimated us because they think we're primitive," Hargrove countered. "Let's prove them right in a way they won't see coming." Before Cole could respond, a rumbling noise grew in the distance. The ground trembled as Kronthi walkers, towering machines bristling with weapons, crested the ridge. Their metallic legs crushed everything in their path, and the shimmering force fields around them deflected the few desperate shots fired by the human defenders. "Captain!" Green's voice cracked with panic. "They're bringing in heavy armor. Fall back to the secondary line." Cole shouted, "Torres, delay them as long as you can." Torres nodded grimly, hefting a rocket launcher onto his shoulder. "You got it, sir. See you on the other side." As the sergeant disappeared into the smoke, Hargrove grabbed Cole's arm. "We don't have time for heroics. Let me show you what those spores can do." Reluctantly, Cole followed him into a makeshift lab set up in the bunker. The air was thick with the pungent scent of alien flora. Logan Price, the colony's chief mechanic, was hunched over a table, modifying what looked like a spray canister. He looked up as they entered, his grease-streaked face breaking into a grim smile. "Doctor here says this stuff eats through anything," Price said, holding up a vial of greenish liquid. "Figured I'd rig something to spread it wide. Kronthi armor won't know what hit him." Cole inspected the device. "How fast can you deploy this?" "With some help?" Price shrugged. "Couple hours." "But we don't have a couple hours, do we?" The distant roar of explosions answered for him. Cole turned to Hargrove. "This better work." It didn't take long to put the plan into action. Under Hargrove's direction, Green hacked into the colony's irrigation system, rerouting it to deliver the corrosive spores instead of water. Price and a handful of volunteers loaded canisters of the substance onto drones and improvised launchers. As the Kronthi walkers approached the bunker, their scanners detected the human resistance's activity. Energy blasts tore into the ground, forcing the defenders to scatter. Torres, holding his ground near a concealed turret, launched a missile at one of the machines. The explosion rattled its shields but didn't penetrate. "Anytime now, Doc." Torres growled into his comm. "Almost there," Hargrove replied, his hands flying over a control panel. The moment came seconds later. Green activated the system, and a fine mist of spore-laden liquid erupted from hidden nozzles across the battlefield. The Kronthi, confident in their superior technology, advanced without hesitation until the spores settled on their armor. The effect was immediate. The alien metal hissed and bubbled as the corrosive substance ate through it. One of the walkers collapsed, its leg sheared clean off. The others tried to retreat, but Price's drone swooped in, releasing more of the deadly mist. Within minutes, the once dominant machines were little more than smoking wreckage. The human defenders erupted in a mix of cheers and disbelieving laughter. Torres clapped Green on the back. "Not bad for a bunch of primitives, huh?" Cole stepped forward, his expression a mix of relief and determination. "This isn't over. They'll come back, and they'll be ready for this trick next time." Hargrove nodded. "Then we'll find another. That's what they don't understand about us. We adapt." As the survivors regrouped, the distant glow of the Kronthi fleet loomed on the horizon. Cole looked at his battered team, men who had faced impossible odds and refused to yield. He knew the fight was far from finished, but for the first time, he felt something other than despair. "We're not done yet," he said, his voice steady. "Not by a long shot." The colony's hidden base, carved into the jagged cliffs of EO7's southern mountains, was a grim haven. The survivors had fled there after the initial skirmish, carrying what little they could salvage. The Kronthi had withdrawn temporarily, regrouping for another assault, giving humanity precious hours to prepare. Captain Nathan Cole stood at the edge of a hastily erected command table, his sharp eyes scanning a map of the surrounding terrain. The base was defensible but far from invulnerable. Supplies were low, morale was tenuous, and the enemy was relentless. Every decision he made had to count. "All right," Cole said, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "If they come at us again with those walkers, we'll need more than spores to hold them off. Ideas?" Dr. Malcolm Hargrove leaned over the map, his fingers tracing the contours of a nearby canyon. "They rely on their technology, on its infallibility. We exploit that arrogance." "Green, what's the status of the Kronthi tech we recovered?" Private Noah Green looked up from his makeshift workstation, where alien components were scattered like puzzle pieces. His youthful face bore fresh signs of strain, but his eyes glimmered with determination. "It's slow going, sir. Their encryption is like nothing I've ever seen, but I've managed to patch into one of their drone control circuits. If I can crack it, we might be able to hijack a few of their systems." "Define might," Cole said, crossing his arms. "Best case, we can turn their own machines against them. Worst case, it explodes in my face." Green replied with a shrug, a faint grin betraying his nerves. "Keep at it," Cole said. "We don't have the luxury of playing it safe." Logan Price, the colony's chief mechanic, leaned back in his chair and stretched, his muscular frame showing the toll of endless hours of labor. "I've been working on something else." Cap took the scrap from one of their walkers and combined it with parts from our industrial exosuits. "It's rough, but it might just give us an edge." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Show me." Price led them to a side chamber, where a towering, humanoid frame stood gleaming in the dim light. The hybrid mech suit was an imposing mix of human ingenuity and alien precision, its joints reinforced with Kronthi alloys, and its arms equipped with both human tools and salvaged energy weapons. "She's not pretty," Price admitted, running a hand over the suit's armored chest plate. "But she's tough. Figured we could use something to level the playing field." Cole nodded appreciatively. "You've outdone yourself, Price. Get her operational." As the team dispersed, Sergeant David Torres approached Cole. The veteran's weathered face was unreadable, but his voice carried a note of quiet urgency. "Captain, you know we're still outnumbered. Even with all this fancy gear, we're fighting uphill." Cole exhaled sharply, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. "I know, Torres, but if we don't hold this line, Earth won't get the chance to send reinforcements. We're all that stands between the Kronthi and our future." Later that night, the Kronthi launched their next offensive. A wave of drones descended upon the base, their sleek forms cutting through the darkened sky like knives. The human defenders scrambled into position, their weapons trained on the incoming swarm. "Green, tell me you've got something." Cole barked over the comms. "Almost there." Green's fingers flew over his keyboard, sweat dripping onto the console. Just a few more seconds. The first drone unleashed a barrage of plasma bolts, lighting up the battlefield. The human turrets returned fire, but the drone's agility made them hard to hit. Just as it seemed the defenses would buckle, Green shouted, "Got it!" A sudden burst of static crackled across the comms, and half the drones froze mid-air. Then, to the astonishment of the defenders, the hijacked drones turned on their allies, blasting them out of the sky with surgical precision. Cheers erupted from the human forces, but the victory was short-lived. The ground trembled as Kranthi walkers emerged from the canyon, their massive legs crushing everything in their path. "Price, you're up," Cole ordered. The hybrid mech suit roared to life, its engines humming with raw power. Price climbed into the cockpit and activated the controls, the suit's arms mimicking his movements. As the first walker approached, Price charged, the suit's energy weapon firing in rapid bursts. The walker's shields absorbed most of the shots, but the impact slowed it just enough for Torres and his team to plant charges on its vulnerable joints. "Clear out," Torres yelled, diving for cover as the charges detonated. The walker collapsed in a fiery explosion, its massive frame crumpling like a house of cards. But the battle was far from over. The Kranthi deployed reinforcements, including a new type of weapon, towering war beasts, genetically engineered monstrosities with razor-sharp claws and thick, armor-like hides. The creatures tore through the human lines with terrifying speed, their roars shaking the very ground. Hargrove, watching from a vantage point, quickly analyzed the beast's movements. "Their hides are tough, but their eyes are exposed," he shouted into his comm. "Green, can you target them?" Cole asked. "I can try." Green rerouted the remaining hijacked drones, directing them to attack the beast's vulnerable eyes. The drone's laser fire blinded one of the creatures, sending it thrashing wildly. The defenders took advantage of the opening, focusing their firepower on the weakened beast until it collapsed. The remaining war beasts advanced, but Price's mech suit intercepted them, its reinforced arms grappling with one of the creatures in a brutal struggle. Sparks flew as claws raked against metal, but Price held firm, driving a plasma blade into the beast's chest. It let out a final, ear-splitting roar before collapsing. As the battle raged on, Cole led a flanking maneuver, his team planting charges on the remaining walkers. Each explosion sent shockwaves through the canyon, forcing the Kranthi to retreat. When the dust settled, the battlefield was littered with the wreckage of drones, walkers, and war beasts. The human defenders, though battered and bloodied, had held their ground. In the aftermath, Cole stood amidst the ruins, his team gathering around him. "We're still here," he said, his voice firm despite the exhaustion etched into his face. "And as long as we're here, we fight. We're not just surviving. We're proving they were wrong about us." The others nodded, their resolve renewed. In the distance, the Kranthi fleet loomed like a dark cloud, preparing for its next move. But humanity had shown it could adapt, innovate, and endure. Whatever came next, they would be ready. The Kranthi fleet descended on the ruins of the original colony, like a tidal wave of shimmering metal and firepower. Their massive warships darkened the sky, casting long shadows over the jagged cliffs where humanity's battered forces prepared their final stand. Inside the fortified base, the air was tense but charged with determination. They had no reinforcements, no fallback plan. This was it. Captain Nathan Cole stood at the command table, flanked by the core members of his team. The faces around him were weary but resolute. He tapped the map in front of him, his finger landing on a canyon that cut through the mountain range like a jagged scar. "They'll come through here," he said. "The Kranthi always rely on overwhelming force. If we can channel them into the canyon, we might have a chance to hit them where it hurts." Sergeant David Torres crossed his arms, his rugged features hardening. "It's a hell of a gamble, Captain. If we miscalculate even a little, Then we're finished, Cole interrupted, his voice steady. But if we don't take risks now, there won't be an Earth left to fight for. Dr. Malcolm Hargrove cleared his throat, holding up a small, circular device. I've been working on something that might tilt the odds. Using the data Green hacked from their systems, I've designed a disruption pulse. If we can get it close enough to their central command walker, it should short-circuit their battlefield coordination. Should. Torres raised an eyebrow. It's experimental, Hargrove admitted, but it's the best shot we've got. Private Noah Green leaned over the table, his fingers still twitching from hours of frantic coding. We'll need to piggyback the signal through their own comms network. If I can get close to one of their forward units, I can hijack it and relay the pulse. Cole looked to Logan Price, who was tightening the joints on his hybrid mech suit. The towering machine gleamed with battle scars, but stood ready, its energy weapons humming with latent power. Price, can your suit handle escort duty for Green? Price grinned, his hands never stopping. She's built for worse than that, Captain. Just point me in the right direction. As they finalized their plan, the first tremors of the Kranthi assault shook the ground. Distant explosions lit up the horizon, signaling the start of the enemy's advance. Cole's voice echoed through the comms, calm and commanding. Everyone knows their role. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about showing them what humanity is capable of. Let's make it count. The battle began with a cacophony of chaos. The Kranthi walkers, larger and more advanced than any the humans had faced before, marched into the canyon. Their towering forms bristled with weaponry, their shields flickering like captive lightning. Swarms of drones hovered above them, scanning for threats and unleashing devastating plasma barrages. Torres and his team lay in wait on the canyon walls, their positions concealed by jagged rocks. When the first wave of Kranthi forces passed below, Torres gave the signal. Explosions erupted along the cliffs, sending tons of rubble crashing onto the walkers. One toppled, its legs buckling under the weight, but the others adjusted seamlessly, their shields absorbing the impact. Keep them pinned, Torres shouted, directing his team to concentrate fire on the remaining walkers. Their improvised railguns punched through weakened sections of armor, slowing the enemy's advance, but not stopping it. Meanwhile, Green and Price moved through the chaos toward their target. The young hacker carried a small transmitter, its blinking light the key to delivering the disruption pulse. Price's mech suit cleared a path, its plasma cannon carving through drones and infantry alike. Despite the suit's bulk, Price moved with surprising agility, shielding Green from the worst of the assault. We're almost there, Green yelled, his voice barely audible over the din of battle. But the Kranthi weren't blind to their strategy. A squad of war beasts bounded toward them, their massive forms tearing through human defenses. One of the creatures lunged at Price, its claws screeching against the mech suit's reinforced plating. Price retaliated with a ferocious punch, the suit's gauntlet discharging an energy burst that sent the beast sprawling. Green move, Price roared, holding off the remaining beasts with everything he had. Green reached a downed Kranthi drone and began his work, fingers dancing over the transmitter's controls. I'm in, he shouted. Just need a few more seconds. The seconds stretched into eternity as the Kranthi forces closed in. On the cliffs, Torres' team was running low on ammunition, and the enemy walkers were adapting to their tactics. Hargrove, monitoring from the command center, activated the base's last line of defense, a barrage of automated turrets armed with the corrosive spore technology. The mist filled the canyon, eating away at the Kranthi's shields and armor, but it wasn't enough to stop them. Green, we're out of time. Cole's voice came through the comms, urgent and unyielding. Almost got it, Green yelled. With a final keystroke, the transmitter activated, piggybacking the disruption pulse through the Kranthi's network. For a moment, everything went still. Then the Kranthi machines began to falter. Walkers stumbled, their movements erratic. Drones dropped from the sky, their engines sputtering. Even the war beasts hesitated, their implanted neural controls disrupted. Now's our chance, Cole ordered. All units, hit them with everything you've got. The human forces surged forward, their combined firepower overwhelming the disoriented Kranthi. Price, battered but unbroken, delivered the final blow to the command walker, driving the mech suit's plasma blade through its core. The machine exploded in a brilliant flash, sending shockwaves through the canyon. As the smoke cleared, the battlefield fell silent. The Kranti survivors, stripped of their technological advantage, began to retreat. For the first time, they had been beaten on their terms. Cole stood amidst the wreckage, his team gathering around him. Hargrove, Green, Torres, and Price, all bloodied but alive, looked to their captain for direction. "They'll be back," Cole said, his voice carrying a mix of exhaustion and defiance. "But now they know what we are." "What's that, sir?" Green asked, his youthful face lit with a flicker of hope. "More than survivors," Cole replied, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "We're humanity, and we adapt." Above them, the Kranti fleet began to withdraw, leaving the battered but unbroken colony, standing as a testament to Earth's resilience.